Arkansas guard Malik Thomas put together an impressive freshman season. Thomas made a surprising decision this past week when the deadline to withdraw their name from the draft passed, and he decided to keep his in the draft. Thomas finished his freshman season averaging 15 points a game, just under 4 rebounds, and 2.5 assists. The general consensus was that Thomas was going to return to Arkansas for his sophomore season. The reason that it was surprising that he didn't decide to return to Arkansas was he really had a pretty average combine and didn't blow away scouts in any of the games. In fact, he actually decided to sit out on the 5-on-5 scrimmages. One can only assume that Thomas is really relying on his individual workouts and his interviews to go well, along with the John Calipari pedigree of guards. From this chart, we can see that Thomas is relatively a pretty well-rounded player with a majority of his shots coming from the perimeter, which makes sense for his position, but he also gets to the basket fairly well and he plays in transition. I know one thing that NBA teams and NBA scouts are falling in love with about Thomas is his positional variety. So he is relatively smaller in my opinion, standing in at 6'3", but he plays really well off the ball as well. I think when you're a player like Thomas and you're projected to go late first round, early second round, the best quality to have is being able to just come in and fit in right away, right? You don't have to have the ball in your hands to succeed. That's a big reason why I expected Malik to return to Arkansas, was to really define those skills or refine those skills at Arkansas to be able to play off the ball a little bit better and just increase the basketball IQ. I'm not saying that he's not a smart basketball player. I just think an additional year in college with a coach like Coach Cal would really be beneficial for him. An area of improvement for Thomas will be his playmaking. In college, he was a fine playmaker. I just think at the next level, he will really have to work very hard to improve that skill. One thing you can say with confidence is Malik knows how to score the ball. You can see from this bar graph the different variations and the different ways that he does score. Something else that's important to consider in this bar graph is his transition points. You can see that Thomas is really effective when in transition, whether it's off a turnover or a missed shot. Thomas is able to get out in open space and finish at the basket. Another important facet of his game is his ability to score without the ball and playing off the ball, cutting to the basket and finishing at the rim. For a player like Thomas, who it's unlikely that he will be the focal point of an offense, that's an extremely important trait for him to have. Admittedly so, this is one of the more impressive shot charts that I've seen. His ability to really score anywhere or feel comfortable taking shots anywhere on the floor. A lot of times players have specific spots that they like getting to, and that's where they take a majority of their shots. You can see Thomas is willing to let it fly from anywhere. Again, this is just a really good example and visual representation of his ability to get to different spots on the floor and feel comfortable shooting from those spots. Obviously, we can see here that Thomas has the offensive ability and offensive potential, but an area that I would like to see him improve on is his defense. He's not a bad defender by any means, but I don't think he's necessarily going to be one of the best defenders in the NBA. I think he'll get a few steals here and there on the ball just because he plays with a lot of intensity and plays physically, and that's a great trait to have. I would just like him to learn more of those defensive fundamentals a little bit more. With that being said, one thing that I kind of live by when I'm scouting a player is you cannot teach heart. Either a guy wants it or he doesn't. And when I watch Thomas play, he definitely wants it. He is a competitor and he plays with a lot of intensity, and that's going to serve him well in the NBA. I obviously do not know Malik personally, but what we've seen from Calipari guards is their ability to come into the NBA and thrive. And I think a big reason for that is Calipari brings in guys that are coachable. So I believe Thomas probably has that same trait where he's coachable and he's open to coaching, and that will also help him. Something offensively that I think Thomas will be able to bring to an NBA roster is his spacing ability. He's definitely not a player that you can just leave wide open and expect to miss shots. He's a good enough shooter, and in the NBA, space is the name of the game and is at a premium. And with more space, this should open up his cutting ability a lot more. When looking at the players that he's been compared to based off the data is I really see a world where he is like a Ryan Rollins, or the one that really stands out to me where I think at his very peak is DeJounte Murray, just this guard that kind of does it all and isn't really a master at one thing but is good at everything. I also don't hate the comparison of Jared McCain. You're seeing what Jared McCain is doing in these Western Conference Finals, and I could see a world where at his peak, Thomas is like that. I do want to point out that I don't think Thomas will ever be the defender that DeJounte Murray is or was, and I don't think he'll necessarily be the shooter that Jaren McCain is, but I think there's a happy medium there. I also think it's important to remember that when I do player comparisons, I don't compare them based off just how they play and how it optically looks, but really the production that you will get out of a player. As always, thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, leave a like and let me know your thoughts in the comments below.